Flosstube, it's Arlene here. It's February 2023. This is my video where I'm sharing my new releases for Nashville Needlework Market. I'm kind of laughing at myself. I can't tell you how many times I just restarted this and then had to one more time because I noticed I did a video just less than 2 weeks ago, and I talked about the sun. I have a skylight right here and how the sun moves across the day. And I literally had a good start to this video. And then I realized, so that's a needlework up there. I've spoken about that before. It's something I designed. But you see what's happening to the sun. It's going to cross over there. So during like these winter months, I keep just like a piece of fabric hanging over it. And I saw it out of the corner of my eye on the video. And I'm like, that just looks stupid. So I stopped, took it off, had to restart, but here I am. I am excited to be sharing with you my new designs. As has been the case for some months, I've worked on these. I stitch all of my own models, at least, at this time. I stitch all my own models, so just about all the stitching I haven't been able to share, or I've chosen not to share and instead wait for a wonderful reveal, which happens just before market. In case you're completely new, Nashville Needlework Market, let me back up a second. I'm a designer under the name Works by ABC. My initials are ABC. That's where I came up with the name. Last year, 2022, was my first time exhibiting at Nashville Needlework Market. It's actually outside of Nashville. The cross-stitch industry takes over an Embassy Suites hotel. And if you're not familiar with Embassy Suites, they are the kind of hotel where everyone gets a suite. You have like a living room space and then like a bedroom in the back area. And so what happens for this market is all the exhibitors, which are mostly designers, although there's thread companies and fabric companies and so on, mostly designers, make the living room space like their store. And then the store owners come. It is a wholesale market, so it's not just like anyone could go and shop. There's other stitching opportunities throughout the year for things like that. This is a wholesale market where the store owners come. It's a cash and carry, so they're buying copies of the patterns right there. They're then going home to their stores and getting them out to their customers, or in some cases, mailing them out to their customers. And so they might not even leave the premises. They're already doing mailing. It's an exciting and fun time of the year. It was a great learning experience last year. I feel like I'm going in this year, like the preparation I've been doing is just huge that I can already picture how certain things went. I have my notes from last year of definitely do this and do this differently and so on. And so it's been a busy few weeks. It will continue to be a busy few weeks. This video is going to get posted on the same day that I'm sending out my email to the stores. Most exhibitors at Nashville send out an email to all the stores that have registered saying, hey, this, mostly it's about new releases, but I suppose it could be about others as well. And if you see anything here that you like and you want to get a copy of, please be in touch with your LNS or online ONS, and I'll talk more about that towards the end. The designs I'm showing you today are going to be exclusive to Nashville, which is to say not available through my Etsy store or through distributors for a month. And that's not that every designer does it this way, but one thought is that the store owners are giving the time and the money to travel to Nashville to purchase things. It gives them a little something to give back to their customers to say, hey, you can buy this right now this week because it's not available at any other place for at least some few weeks. And for some people, it's a fun thing to make sure you have it first. So I'm just going to jump right in. I was with some friends, non-stitching friends, and I was trying to share with them the whole excitement of all of this. And I shared them pictures, and one of them said, well, what's your favorite? And I mean, I guess it's like everything else. You're a child or something, you don't pick a favorite, but like they're all my favorite. We're just going to get started. Okay, first up is a new lace design. In addition to doing cross stitch, I do bobbin lace, and so lace has always been an interest of mine. And when I started designing, I had this idea of could I translate lace things, lace tablecloths, lace whatever, into a cross-stitch design. And I was counting this morning so I would know. This is now the 7th one that I've done. Technically 8 because there was one in just Cross Stitch magazine. So I have gossamer lace, floral lace, rosebud lace, pomegranate lace, heirloom lace, elegant lace. So the way I name them, pick an adjective followed by lace. And the story behind this one is, well, it's a piece of the story. I have a very, very dear friend, older, love it when I get a chance to catch up with her. She doesn't live nearby. And a couple months ago, finally had a time we were talking on the phone, and she's so sweet in the way she cares about my stitching world. And so right before we started talking, I knew that this was going to come up. So I texted her a picture of what I'm about to share with you. And we started the conversation, and eventually it circled around to my stitching. And I said, "Oh, did you see the picture I sent you?" And she said, "No, let me go look right now." And she came back and said, "It's exquisite." And I said to her, "You know, that's the exact name that I've been contemplating. And the fact that you just said it, it's a done deal." So I present to you all Exquisite Lace. This is my lace designs have varied a little bit. This one is completely 100% full crosses. I've loved the look of some variations with half stitch and different strands. This one is complete crosses. I know sometimes I look at it and think that's a computer generated picture. Nope, it's all stitched. Some details. I used Flosh, and I took out, this is an unopened skein. And I've talked before how much I like using this thread. To me, this is a 36 count fabric, and to me, one strand of Flosh just gives great coverage. One strand of floss on a 36 count sometimes is beautiful, but would not give me the coverage that I would want here. And out of a little bit of laziness, why deal with 2 strands of anything when you can deal with 1 strand? So I love using Flosh. It certainly don't need to use that to stitch this. You certainly don't need this combination of colors. You don't even need it to be white because lace is not always white. But if you're curious, this is what I stitched on. Now, some videos, I feel like more than once, I've talked about this fabric that I've been stitching on. This fabric, which is actually coming across pretty okay, is a Zweigart fabric that seems to be called here in the United States magical gray. Zweigart itself, as much as I understand it, doesn't name their fabrics. They're just numbers. And this is a new one, relatively speaking, new one in the last couple of years. And like if you went searching online to find it, search magical gray Zweigart. You'll probably find it wherever it is. To my knowledge, it only comes in 36 count. I don't know why. Now, when I have, at a distance, you might say, "Oh, isn't that charcoal gray?" So just to show you, this is a piece of charcoal gray. And I think when I'm doing this, even from a distance, you can see there's definitely a difference. It makes this have like a purplish tone to it, grayish purplish tone. Anyway, I have loved how this came out. I just love it. So details, which I've already basically shared. It was stitched on 36 count magical gray. The stitch count is 205 by 331. On a 36 count, worked perfectly fine on a fat quarter. Like on a 28 count, I have 14.7 by 23.7. It depends what kind of length you have, but about fat quarter size, maybe a little bit more, depending on what size fabric you use. So there it is, Exquisite Lace. Excited to share this. I'm excited to share all of them. Well, especially, one of the great thing about Market is everything in person. And obviously, in the last couple of years, Market was canceled in 2021. It happened at the beginning of March, like literally right before things started shutting down in 2020. But to see people, greet people, talk to people in person, not to mention to see the actual models in person. You could have the best picture on the cover of your design, and it still isn't as good as seeing it in person. And I think everyone would agree with that. Stores who have like trunk shows. How many times do you hear a customer say, "Wow, I want to get that. I never would have been interested in that, but here's the model. It's amazing." Moving on. So, if you are not familiar with my designing style, I consider myself quite eclectic in that I just try to do different things. So lace is certainly one place of inspiration. Another big place of inspiration is about geometric designs of all kinds. And in my other life, I am a middle school math teacher, so there is certainly math thinking, geometric thinking that goes on from that perspective. If you can picture anything, any design you would call symmetrical, and maybe it's just like cut it down the middle and the two sides look the same. Maybe it's cut it into 4 parts and each quarter has been, rotated to look the same. So to use that second one, that would be considered fourfold symmetry, when you have 4 things that are the same. I've done a lot of reading and interesting research on particularly Islamic geometric design, and there is a lot of 4-fold, 6-fold, and 5-fold. And I say that in order because that's like the order of common, how you don't see 5-fold as much, and then multiples of that. So to see a design that has, let's say, a flower-looking thing in the center with 10 petals, so multiple of 5, or 16, or 12. It exists, but it's very unusual to find something that has 7-fold geometry. And found something and decided to make a stitching project out of it. So I'm calling this design 7-fold. If you just focus on this around here, you'll see, well, there's 7 there. If you were to focus in the center, you've got 14 little flowers going on there. So it is unusual in the geometric design world. It comes from a door. Oh, I was looking at this the other night. A door from a mosque that's in Turkey. Depending on when you're watching this, there's a devastating earthquake that happened just a few days ago. And I did mean to look up to see where this mosque was. I mean, it seems like everything has been affected in that area. Okay, I'm getting off track here. So, here's a picture of this door that has 7-fold geometry. I have taken an online course, watched videos here and there, need to come back and finish it, on, it's called The Secret of Sevens. And it was about doing constructions, like using compass and straight edge, which is another interest of mine, to reconstruct things like this. It's a whole world of people who enjoy this kind of thing. And so that's where it came from. It came from that course where we were talking about that door and doing a reconstruction, paper and pencil reconstruction of that door. And I just thought it had that unique mathiness to it that I thought, well, can I do this as a cross-stitch design? Yeah, I can, and I did. I think the colors, I love how the color parts turned out. This is on 32 count Stormy Night Zweigart, which is one of those that it's printed, but it almost looks like it's variegated or hand-dyed of some way. These are DMC threads. And what else is there to share? Oh, the stitch count. 225 over 232. And I mean, sometimes you see a design, you just know you like it. Sometimes you're interested. I'm interested in sort of how it was composed. And that's why I love sharing details like that. This came from doing a geometric construction course and finding a design that just by doing paper and pencil had this intrigue, especially as rectangular, what happens when you expand the pattern out. And I really like how it came out. So, called it 7-fold. And that is number 2. I am surrounded with things here, as is probably the case with, any Flosstube video, but certainly today with these models. Okay, next up, need to kind of prep something here. I don't know if you've ever had the experience where, you have an idea for something and you just can't make it work, but it stays in the back of your mind in a, maybe it'll work someday. Maybe I'll stumble upon something someday. This is exactly that situation. I started designing Works by ABC 2017, so almost 6 years now. And it was probably about 2018, definitely before COVID, that I had this thought and could not come up with a solution for it. And then something happened, actually last summer, and I found my solution. So let's see if I can do this correctly. I am presenting you a pattern called nesting dolls. And what I'd always wanted to do is not only create nesting dolls, like there are cross stitch patterns that have this, but three-dimensional ones that, let me do this right, that actually nest. These are created out of perforated paper. And the thing that happened last summer at my stitching retreat, there was conversation about perforated paper that happened in different ways, in different forms, especially Danielle Stitcherista. She's like the expert in perforated paper. And it was like this moment of, wait a second, could that be my solution? And I got some paper, played around with how to make this work. So each of these has a front, and they are completely three-dimensional, so they're stitched front, back, and basically a side piece. So each has is made up of 3 pieces, and they are different because of the size. And so stitching all of these, my size limitation was about the side piece of the large one. That this side piece needed to fit, at a maximum on a piece of perforated paper. It usually comes in sheets later, like 9 by 12. And so the whole design of this came about by working from there. I thought $3 was enough. You can find nesting dolls that, and doing research, it's like you can find ones that are like $15 and really, and they're not just limited to this look. So people often refer to them as Russian nesting dolls or it's written on the thing. I'm trying to keep holding these up. What's the word? Matros. Boy, I'm not gonna say it right. I know sometimes they're called babushka dolls, but as I think I've got that right. But as I've read, call them what you want, okay? And I've put some history on these. They often get associated with Russia, absolutely, but there's origins of this idea of dolls fitting in each other that go back way longer than the history of what's known in the Russian, basically, toy industry. So, perforated paper made it happen. So this pattern will be sold with 2 pieces of perforated paper, and that gives you more than enough. Like there's a picture that I have and it has finishing instructions. And you can see I did fronts and backs of all 6 pieces on one piece of paper, one piece of the perforated paper. So because there is, I'm hoping, interest in this, but also, thinking about materials. It's one thing to pick out a fabric or, say I'm going to do it in a different fabric, but when you need something like perforated paper at its essence for a design to make them stand up, that's the whole idea, is that they stand up on their own. So this pattern will be sold with 2 pieces of perforated paper. If you're not familiar, it comes in lots of colors. Many people might only be interested in white. In order for me to source enough that I could get in time for Nashville, my Nashville patterns are coming with ecru color. Doesn't make a difference because you can see it's a full coverage design. So this is definitely, to me, this is definitely the kind of thing that you really want to see in person. Or I think store owners would be that much more interested in seeing it in person and then being able to go back and describe it. Either today or very, very soon, you can go to my Instagram and I will have a video basically doing what I just did there in terms of nesting them, that anyone would be able to see, even if they're not watching this video. But why am I telling you guys this? Because you're watching this video. Doesn't matter. So, now I just lost my train of thought. Size-wise. So, again, this is designed to be on 14 count perforated paper. 18 count perforator paper exists. So I guess you can do it on that size and they'd be smaller. But, I mean, you can probably see the way I'm holding it. So the little guy is just about 2 inches tall. This guy is a little over 3. This guy's about 4.5. And again, the size was about the largest thing that I needed, which was the side strip of the large one. So I'm excited for my nesting dolls, and I hope others will be too. All right, next up, I definitely have given hints about this already. In November, I brought out a winter biscornu stack, which actually I brought up here. And I spoke about how I would be making these for each season. In addition, and sort of got me inspired, was that I had stitched a Valentine's one that is in the current February 2023 issue of Just Cross Stitch. I say current because they're probably already starting to put out the next ones. I don't know. February 2023 cross stitch you can find. It's called Love, Hugs, and Kisses there, and it's a Valentine's biscornu stack. And because I liked creating that so much, I was like, I want to do more of these. So here came winter. And for Nashville, I'm going to use this again. I am pleased to present to you my spring biscornu stack. So the top one says spring, and you do a bottom piece, but just sort of like the edges. The middle one says flowers in bloom. And the large one says birds and butterflies. You can see birds and butterflies. These were stitched on a 36 count lavender, Zweigart lavender. And, as one of the many reasons why I have not yet been able to take that step into having other people stitch is I had one vision of exactly how these were going to get stitched, and I started doing it. I'm like, I do not like how this looks. So there's actually 2 different threads involved. There is a variegated DMC, and you can see on like where I used it here on these butterflies. I'm hoping you could see it. Yeah, I'm hoping you could see. But to do it all in variegated just did not look good. So there is also a solid green in certain places. So on each of them, there's some solid and there's some of the variegated, and I really like how it turned out. Now, if you are attentive to what I just held up a few moments ago, here's the winter one. They look different sizes, don't they? They're the same stitch count, but on different size fabric. And actually, same here. All 3 of these, I mean, maybe you're off by 1 or 2, but are basically have the same stitch counts. The one that is brand new, the spring one, is on 36 count. The Valentine's one was on 32 count. The winter one is on 25 count. I wanted to use the sparkly fabric, as I know I talked about at that time. So it just becomes an interesting way to think about fabric count. Other than like the in-person in Nashville, most people aren't going to necessarily, if they're just seeing my patterns in a store, say, are not necessarily going to realize that there is this kind of size difference. And again, this one's in Just Cross Stitch, so it is not one that'll be in Nashville, but these 2 will be. And there will be a summer stack coming out in May of 2023. And then in late August will be the autumn stack. So the same idea, 3 using basically 1 color thread, although some little bit of variation to that. Words along the side with the same name of the season on the top one, the smallest. And I look forward to having them all together. Now, see how this goes. My summer one is planned to be on 40 count because, I mean, that's what started is I found this fabric that really said summer to me. Did I just My summer one is going to be on 40 count. So it'll be even same stitch count. It'll be smaller than this. And then the autumn, I am pretty sure I'm planning, it's either a 28 or a 32. I got two possibilities. But basically, it would make all four of these seasons in different size fabric, different count fabric, which I like doing things, something a little bit like, I'm going to say research, something interesting to see how a design size-wise gets affected by what count fabric you use. So there you go. Spring biscornu stack. If you are, there it is. The large one is 64 by 64. The medium is 46 by 46. The small is 32 by 32. And there you go. Okay. Next on my list. Okay. One of the reasons that I didn't actually tell you the date when I started this, is because I have a little bit of unfinishedness in the next one I'm about to show you. However, this was my chunk of time to film a Flosstube, so I have to do it now, and I'll explain more detail in a moment. I have a new band sampler, and I've been waiting for the hardware, and it arrived yesterday, and it wasn't correct. I got sent the wrong thing. And so it may be that I can't get what I want and I'm going to have to use what they sent. We'll see how it goes. So that's the background. Once I make this decision and finalize this, then I can take pictures, because as of right now, the moment I'm going to show you, I don't really have a, quote, finished pattern for it. So like I did in August, this is actually a re-release of one of my early patterns, one that I had just put a computer-generated design and moved on to the next thing, but had always intrigued me to come back to for a particular reason, and then I added to that reason. How many of us have these sulky containers? If you're not familiar, Sulky, which is a thread company that is probably more well known in quilting world and sewing world, started marketing these 12-weight cotton petites to cross stitchers, saying that it's like the equivalent of 2 strands. People argue 2 strands, 1.5 strands of floss. So when I got, and there's actually 2 different color sets. So I have 2 of these that don't have the same colors. It's all together. They're 2 different ones. And I know when I got them, I didn't care about mixing up the 2 containers. I wanted to put the colors together. And so in this, these should stay when I hold it up. In this process, if you look at the purples into the blues, now I'm a purple, blue, periwinkle, that's my color range. That's what I love. And this has always been tuck it in the back of my mind. How can I use that in some way? And so deciding to re-release this pattern was the perfect way to do it. Now I need to hold it up for you all to see. So, don't step on anything. There are 18 squares. I'll come closer in a moment. And we start at a red-violet and go all the way down to a blue. And these are 18 different colors of sulky petite. And I loved it. When I originally put out this pattern, the picture, I took it off my Etsy store a long time ago. The pattern had these 18 squares arranged in a 3x6 rectangle. When you have 18 squares, you can do all kinds of things. You can do different rectangular arrangements. You could also just stitch one of them and turn it into an ornament or a scissor fob. So, if you can see, this is a gold hardware. I had wanted a silver, black, I forget, something more in the silver world. I'll be curious of your opinions, what you think of the gold. It may be that I just end up going with it, because at Nashville, I have this vision on how, and you want to hang it, to hang it and then it spills onto the table. Because the color, I think the colors look pretty cool. And I just want to be able to show that off. So I need to be able to hang it I know some people take band samplers and kind of wrap them around a spool, which is a great like storage thing. I need to be thinking about display here. So I'm curious of your opinions on whether the gold banding is just really, excuse me, the gold hardware is just like, or whether it's just fine. And again, I might not have a choice. I might need to just go with this. So I will need to get pictures. Oh, so right now, this is what the pattern looks like. Okay. I need to work on the pictures, finalize whatever it is I'm going to do, get the story email out, get the Flosstube video out. That's the order of things. Just so you know, this banding that I stitched it on was on a 27 count banding over 2. And I used 2 strands of the sulky because, I mean, this ends up being like 13.5 count. So I definitely wanted more coverage than 1 strand of the sulky would give. And if you were to stitch it like this on this banding, it is 31 inches. You know, the whole thing is 31 inches all the way down to there. So like if you bought like a yard of banding, you'd have that margin. Now, what I did this morning for the sake of this video is I just quickly basted just to get this, you know, so onto something, and I need to figure out its final state. But there you go. 18 colors of sulky that appeal to my eye. You could do this with any set of colors. You know, if you're a green person or whatever, and obviously it doesn't need to be sulky. Whatever number of colors you want, this movement from one color family to the next where they are connected. So I love this. I love how it came out. And stitching on banding is like a fun, you know, it's small. It's easy to carry around. So the last of my Nashville exclusives is my contribution to the Tea Time, the Treenway Silks Tea Time palette, X-Stitch the Rainbow. Talked about this before. If you haven't seen it yet, please, if you're on IG or on Facebook, follow. So it's a collaboration. 25 designers were all given the same 4 threads, the same theme, tea time, and the limitation of 60 by 60. And I think you could tell I'm mostly not a small size designer. I tend to design larger pieces. So alone, that was my challenge, is doing a 60 by 60. And I know I showed the threads, I think, on my last video. I love especially this one right here, which is called Sterling Silver. Thread packs for these are going to be available, so your store owners can purchase a thread pack. And given that these designs are 60 by 60, you have way more thread than you possibly could need. So I don't know if anyone out there is actually going to purchase all 25 designs. I think that would look amazing, like on some giant piece of fabric. But one thread pack will work for many designs. And we were also limited. We were only allowed to use these 4 threads. So it becomes a good, like, creative challenge. So let's talk creative challenges, people. When the theme Tea Time was decided, there was a vote, you know, among the designers who said they wanted to be a part. I'll be the first to admit Tea Time wasn't my first choice. I mean, I definitely wanted to be a part. It wasn't enough that I was going to say no. But I got stuck in my thinking. Teapots, teacups. Teapots, teacups. There's a lot of variations. And a number of designers have already started showing, and there's wonderful creativity. But I got it into my mind of, could I do a design that is tea time themed that doesn't have a teacup or a teapot on it? Where I went, because I've seen that you've seen this with some of my, not with any of my new Nash ones, but certainly other designs I have, that I love quotes and words. So I went looking for quotes about tea. And so one quote I found is from a Japanese tea master, and it says, "A cup of tea is a cup of peace." I am a tea drinker. I'm not a coffee drinker, and I certainly agree with this statement. So I stitched this up on a teal green Zweigart 28 count, my lotus flower for my cup of peace, and there it is. There's no teacup or teapot, but it's tea themed. And especially if you are a tea drinker, I think a lot of people would agree that what tea can give you, especially when you need that calming time. Now, as I started stitching this, a friend of mine mentioned something, and it was mentioned as a joke, okay? But then I ran with it. Arlene, if you're doing this thing with tea time, you should stitch it on a tea towel. Ha 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 ha. Well, guess what? I stitched it on a tea towel. So, I've never stitched anything like this before. So you can see, this is the same design. The colors are slightly changed, the difference between stitching on a dark fabric and a light fabric. So that alone made it a useful idea. I think I've seen some posts of some other designers that have stitched it on both light and dark. I'll be curious. There's supposed to be a gathering for the designers that are part of Tea Time that are going to be at Nashville. There's a gathering. I'm so curious to talk to some others in terms of the challenges I found with the threads. The thread colors, the threads are beautiful to stitch with. I don't mean that. In designing, particularly in picking out fabric that works for all 4 colors. So this is like, the fact that I found one of these at Joann's, I wasn't even looking. I was getting something else, some DMC, and I look over there, and there's like hanging on the rack this one little baggie, and I forget the name of the company, and it came with like 2 of these dish towels, and they're made. I mean, so it is not cross-stitch fabric, but they hang with the stitching stuff because you're be able to stitch or embroider particularly on that. So you also to do this, I knew this enough to get waste canvas, which is this, you lay it down on top, it gives you a grid, but the threads of the waste canvas you're supposed to be able to pull them out. And it was a pain to cut and pull them out, but I did, got them all out. So same design, 2 different colorways, and the fun of, I did a tea design on a tea towel. Now, when I was looking for quotes, actually a cup of tea is a cup of peace wasn't actually my first choice. My first choice was, there is no trouble so great or grave that cannot be much diminished by a nice cup of tea. And maybe you could even hear that seemed kind of long. Even with the smallest cross-stitch alphabet, there was just no way to do it justice on a 60 by 60 limitation. And so I thought, I'll backstitch the letters and then, do the cross-stitch around that. Well, it's a long enough quote that, again, to pick out a decent backstitch alphabet, there's no space left to do anything with cross-stitch. So you may or may not know, depending if you've been around here with me for a while, I also like to design blackwork pieces. I don't have a new blackwork design with any of the ones that I've shown so far. I did have a blackwork design at Nashville last year. But I thought, well, what if I turn this into a blackwork design? And so I did. So this, let's see if I can help it show up. There's no trouble so great or grave that cannot be much diminished by a nice cup of tea. And I'm hoping you can see, yes, there is a teapot here. Blackwork, if you're not familiar, it's basically like backstitching, which I know some people hate backstitching, but I also know people who hate backstitching and they've tried something with blackwork. They're like, wow, I like the look of this. So one thing so this is on a 32 count pearl gray. The teapot in the background has a pretty dense, what's called a filling stitch, just has a lot of stitching, so to speak. The more open filling stitch for the background there. So the teapot, the background, the border is all done with 1 strand of the Treenway silks. And I did the words in 2 strands just to help it show up that much more. Now, I am selling these together. So, if you like my cross-stitch design, you're going to get the blackwork design whether or not you stitch it. And I've provided the color information for both the light and dark fabric for the cross-stitch version, as well as the pattern with some stitching instructions for the blackwork. So I hope you like it. I stitched 3 models for this, which was in no way what I was thinking when I started. There are, like I said, there's some wonderful designs, some that have already been posted, some that haven't even been shared yet, and I look forward to seeing them all. There is already, there is a website. I'll put it below. I mean, it needs to get updated as more and more designers finish and more designers send pictures so that they can be put on this. But eventually, before March 3rd, you would be able to see all 25 designs in one place. Now, we're going to call this a bonus. I'm not making this an exclusive for Nashville, so it will be available outside the stores, and it's because of a timing thing. A couple years ago, I came out with a matzah cover. If you don't know much about Passover, which is a Jewish holiday that happens around Easter, dates of both Easter and Passover change a lot over the year. Passover is not a Jewish holiday that you decorate for. But there's certain parts of the Seder, which is the, you don't go to synagogue for Passover. It's like you bring a service to your home. And it's a whole thing that gets happened, and then it ends with dinner, although there's also a part that's supposed to happen after dinner. And so there's many very traditional and like rituals that are involved. One of them involves matzah on the table. And I mean, you could just cover it with a napkin or something. But so I came out with a couple years ago a matzah cover, and this says matzah in Hebrew. And just thinking a little bit more this year, what could I do to add to it? So I now have a companion piece called afikomen bag. So, little background. During the Seder, there is a point where you have 3 matzahs on the table. The leader of the Seder takes the middle of those 3 matzahs, breaks it in half, wraps it in something, and goes and hides it. And then later on, usually like after dinner, the kids go on a hunt to find it. Every family kind of does this a little differently. Often there's a reward involved, all kinds of ways. So if you know anything about matzah, or if you don't, there's a lot of crumbs involved. And inevitably, if that matzah and the piece that gets wrapped and gets hidden is called the afikomen. If that afikomen was hidden, let's say, in some couch cushions, you can bet there's going to be crumbs in there, no matter how well it's wrapped. So a little bit more and more families have acquired what's called an afikomen bag. Now, this is basically the idea of a project bag, like a envelope-style project bag, just on a smaller, smaller. I followed Vanna's tutorial, I will link it below, and just did it on a smaller scale. So this spells afikomen in Hebrew. If you don't know, Hebrew is read from left to right. No, sorry. English and most languages are read from left to right. Hebrew is read from right to left. So the beginning of the word ah is that letter right there. This letter is where the f sound comes from, and so on. And you can probably see these are both stitched using the, obviously the same font or alphabet, but the same thread as well. So these were stitched with Gentle Arts Midnight. You can stitch it with whatever. And I now have them this size. So if you've previously purchased my matzah cover, I had it as a big size. It made more sense to kind of do it like this size. So the afikomen is a new design, and it's going to be available because when Passover comes. Now, your store owner could buy this at Nashville, get it home to you, get it in your hands. It's a small design. It will not take long to stitch up. But for those who don't want to wait, I want to make sure to be able to get this out in time. Now, I looked up, Passover is not particularly early this year. I forget the dates. I should have looked that up before I started. That's okay. But this could be something. Now, no guarantees. There probably still will be crumbs involved when you put the afikomen in this, but it's a fun companion, right? So there you go. That is my Nashville release. I don't know if you guys heard the doorbell ring. I'll be curious to see, maybe there's a package. Doesn't matter. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you are as excited about my new designs as I am. If you have a store, either in person, brick and mortar, or online that you love to shop through, and that store owner is headed toward Nashville, tell them to swing by. I'll be in room 531. Would love to say hello. If any of these designs appeal to you, especially like in this moment right now, you want to contact somebody and say, I want to definitely get that. Can I do a pre-order with you? And I'll do a little plug here. My good friend Abby, who is Abby Topknot, has a wonderful setup. So she's Top Knot Stitcher Shop. She is a beast at Nashville. I have seen her in action. Do any pre-orders you want with her, you know you're going to get it shipped pretty quickly. I have witnessed this. So there's my little plug. If please support whatever store, especially is local or near to you. But if you need a store because you've never ordered anything from anywhere, I'll put a link to Abby's shop down below. So I'm hoping you're all excited and enthusiastic. I hope you have found lots of exciting things that have been a part of the Nashville previews. And we all have some exciting weeks ahead as more and more designs have been revealed. As always, so appreciate you being here. You know the drill, the likes and the comments absolutely, make a difference in the YouTube algorithms and the way I can get my work out there to more people. I appreciate all of you. Till next time. Bye.